I used to believe that blood was thicker than water. That family meant everything, and you'd do anything to protect the people who share your name. But sometimes the people who share your blood are the ones who'll drain you dry, and the family that raised you is the family that'll destroy everything you've built. My name is David. I'm 29 years old, and I'm a certified public accountant with my own small but growing practice in Denver, Colorado. I've always been the numbers guy, the one who thinks things through, who plans ahead and saves for tomorrow. While my older sister Jessica was busy living her best life, bouncing from one get-rich-quick scheme to another, I was working my way through college, then through my CPA certification, building something real, something lasting. By the time this story starts, I had worked for 7 years to build what I was proud of. My accounting firm, Miller & Associates, employed 6 people and served over 200 small business clients. I had a beautiful office in downtown Denver with my name on the door, a steady income that let me buy a house in a nice neighborhood, and enough in savings to feel secure about my future. I was even planning to propose to my girlfriend Rachel, a teacher who shared my values about hard work and building a life together. I thought I had learned how to protect myself from my family's chaos. I'd set boundaries. I'd stopped lending money. I'd stopped getting involved in their drama. I thought I was safe in the life I'd built, insulated by distance and success from the dysfunction I'd grown up with. Until my parents, Carol and Frank Miller, were hard-working people who ran a small auto repair shop in my hometown of Grand Junction. They weren't wealthy, but they were comfortable enough. The problem was that they had 2 completely different children, and they'd never figured out how to parent us fairly. Jessica was 3 years older than me, and from the day I was born, she'd been the star of the family. She was charming, outgoing, and I had this way of making my parents believe that every failure was just bad luck, and every scheme was going to be the big break that changed everything. Me? I was the backup plan, the steady one, the one they could count on to be responsible while they focused all their energy on Jessica's latest adventure. When Jessica dropped out of college to start a jewelry business that failed within 6 months, they called it entrepreneurial spirit. When I graduated summa cum laude with my accounting degree, they said it was nice, but asked when I was going to do something more exciting with my life. The pattern had been set for decades. Jessica would get into trouble, and somehow it would become everyone else's job to fix it. She'd borrowed money from our parents dozens of times and never paid it back. She'd lived rent-free in their house for 2 separate years as an adult. She'd used their credit cards, crashed their cars, and once even forged my father's signature on a loan application. But somehow, it was always just Jessica being Jessica, and family helped family. I'd managed to mostly stay out of it for the past 5 years. I lived 3 hours away, I'd built my own life, and I'd gotten very good at saying no when the phone calls came asking for money or favors. I thought I'd learned how to love my family from a safe distance. Then came the call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening in March. I was at home going over client files and enjoying the quiet of my evening routine when my phone rang. It was my mother, and I could hear the panic in her voice before she even started talking. "David, honey, we need your help. It's about Jessica." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. What happened now? She's in real trouble this time. Real trouble. She owes money to some very dangerous people, and they're threatening to hurt her if she doesn't pay. My stomach dropped. What kind of money? What kind of people? She borrowed $50,000 from someone to start her catering business. She said it was an investor, but now he's demanding the money back with interest, and he's making threats. I set down my pen and rubbed my temples. Jessica had started and failed at probably a dozen businesses over the years. Mom, why didn't she get a legitimate business loan from a bank? Banks won't lend to her after her credit problems. Jessica's credit problems. That was one way to put it. My sister had declared bankruptcy twice by the age of 32. She defaulted on credit cards, car loans, and even a student loan for a degree she'd never finish. No legitimate lender would touch her. Mom, this sounds like she borrowed money from a loan shark. That's illegal, and it's dangerous, and it's not something I can help with. David, please. You're the only one in the family who understands money and business. Maybe you could talk to this person, work out some kind of payment plan. Absolutely not. Jessica needs to call the police if someone is threatening her. She can't call the police. This man has connections. He'll hurt her, David. He'll hurt all of us. I felt that familiar sinking feeling, the one I'd been trying to avoid my entire adult life. What exactly are you asking me to do? We need you to loan her the money, just temporarily. She has this new business opportunity, a food truck venture, and once that gets going, she'll be able to pay everyone back. There it was, the ask I'd been expecting since the call started. Mom, I'm not lending Jessica $50,000. It's not lending, it's investing. She'll make you a partner in the business. I almost laughed. Jessica and business partnerships were like oil and water. Mom, I've told you before, I don't lend money to family. It never works out. This is different. This is life or death. If it's life or death, then Jessica needs to call the FBI, not her little brother. My mother started crying. David, she's your sister. We raised you to take care of each other. That phrase hit me like a punch to the gut. We raised you to take care of each other. But it was never Jessica taking care of me. It was always me being expected to take care of Jessica. I need to think about this, I said. There's no time to think. These people want their money by Friday, or they're going to do something terrible. Then Jessica should have thought about that before she borrowed money from criminals. David Miller, I cannot believe you're being so cold about this. Your sister's life is in danger. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet house and tried to process what I'd just heard. $50,000. My parents wanted me to pay $50,000 to clean up another one of Jessica's messes. That was more than I made in profit in a good quarter. That was the down payment on the bigger office space I'd been saving for. That was money I needed for my own business, my own future. But more than the money, it was the principle. How many times was I going to be expected to sacrifice my goals, my security, my peace of mind for Jessica's latest crisis? How many times was I going to watch my parents enable her destructive behavior by making it everyone else's problem? The next morning, Jessica called me directly. David, I know Mom talked to you. I need you to understand how serious this is. Jessica, I understand that you borrowed money from the wrong people, and now you want me to fix it. It's not like that. Tony seemed legitimate when I met him. He had an office, business cards, references. Tony the loan shark had business cards. Don't be sarcastic. I'm scared, David. Really scared. For a moment, I felt that familiar pull of sympathy. Jessica might be irresponsible and self-centered, but she was still my sister. Have you actually seen these threats? Has anyone actually threatened you directly? Tony called me yesterday and said I had until Friday to pay him back, plus 30% interest, or there would be consequences. What kind of consequences? He said he knew where I lived, where I worked, where our parents lived. That got my attention. Jessica, if this man is threatening violence, you need to call the police right now. I can't call the police. If I do, Tony will know it was me, and he'll retaliate. So instead, you want me to pay him $50,000. Plus interest. It's $65,000 total now. I closed my eyes. Of course it was more than my mother had said. Jessica, I don't have $65,000 just lying around. That's more than most people make in a year. But you own a business. You have good credit. You could get a loan. You want me to take out a loan to pay your loan shark. It's not forever. Once my food truck business gets going, I'll pay you back with interest. I thought about all the other businesses, the jewelry company that lasted 6 months, the online boutique that never sold a single item, the personal training certification she'd gotten and never used, the real estate licenses she'd earned and let expire. Jessica, what happened to the $50,000 you borrowed? Where did it go? There was a long pause. I used it to pay off some other debts. What other debts? Credit cards, a car payment, some money I owed to Mom and Dad. I felt my blood pressure rising. So you borrowed $50,000 from a dangerous person to pay off credit card debt. It's more complicated than that. Explain it to me. I also bought equipment for the catering business. A new truck, professional kitchen equipment, marketing materials. Show me the receipts. I don't have them all organized yet. Jessica, I'm an accountant. I can help you figure out exactly where this money went, but I need to see documentation. There's no time for that. I need the money by Friday. If you can't show me where the original $50,000 went, I'm definitely not giving you $65,000 more. She started crying. David, I can't believe you're being so heartless. I'm your sister. I could be in real physical danger. Then call the police. You know I can't do that. Why? Because Tony isn't real? The silence on the other end of the line told me everything I needed to know. Jessica, is there actually a loan shark named Tony threatening you? Of course there is. Why would I make that up? Because you've made up stories before when you needed money. That's not fair. Remember when you said you needed $5,000 for a medical emergency and it turned out you wanted to go to Vegas with your friends? That was different, was it? She hung up on me. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I hired a private investigator to look into Jessica's claims. It cost me $500, but I needed to know the truth. If my sister was really in danger, I would help her, even if it meant taking a financial hit. But if she was lying to manipulate me into funding her lifestyle, I needed to know that too. The investigator called me back 2 days later with a report that made my blood boil. There was no Tony. There was no loan shark. There was no catering business, no food truck venture, no business equipment. Jessica had been unemployed for 4 months and was facing eviction from her apartment. She owed money to 3 different credit card companies, had defaulted on her car payment, and was behind on every bill she had. But the part that really got me was what the investigator found out about our parents. They'd been supporting Jessica financially for months, paying her rent, her car payment, her credit card minimums. They'd taken out a second mortgage on their house to cover her debts. They were in financial trouble themselves, but they were hiding it from me because they knew I'd try to stop them from enabling her. The whole desperate story about dangerous loan sharks was a complete fabrication. Designed to get me to hand over enough money to solve all of Jessica's problems and bail out our parents in the process. I sat in my office that evening, staring at the investigator's report, and felt something break inside me. Not just disappointment or frustration, but something deeper. A fundamental trust in my family that I hadn't even realized I still had. They were willing to lie to me, manipulate me, play on my love and fear for their safety, all to get me to fix problems that they had created through years of bad decisions. My parents had taught Jessica that there were no real consequences for her actions because someone would always bail her out. And now they expected me to be that someone. I made a decision that night that changed everything. I wasn't going to give them money, but I also wasn't going to just say no and let them continue their destructive pattern. I was going to make sure there were real consequences for their manipulation and lies. I started by calling every single one of my clients who had any business relationship with my family. Jessica had been dropping my name for years, telling people she was the sister of a successful accountant, using that connection to gain credibility for her various schemes. 3 of my clients had actually done business with her. 2 had lost money. I called each of these clients personally and explained the situation. I told them that my sister was not affiliated with my business in any way, that any debts or obligations she had were hers alone, and that they should not expect any assistance from me in collecting what she owed them. I also told them that if they chose to continue doing business with her, it could affect our professional relationship. Next, I contacted the credit reporting agencies and put fraud alerts on my credit reports. Jessica had been known to use family members' information for credit applications in the past, and I wanted to make sure she couldn't use my identity to solve her current problems. Then I did something that felt nuclear, but necessary. I wrote a detailed letter to my parents explaining exactly what the private investigator had found. I told them I knew about the second mortgage, about their financial support of Jessica, and about the lies they'd told me. I explained that I would not be providing any financial assistance to Jessica or to them, and that any further attempts to manipulate me would result in me cutting off contact entirely. But the most important thing I did was write a letter to Jessica herself. In it, I laid out every lie she'd told, every manipulation she'd attempted, and every way she'd used our family relationships to avoid responsibility for her actions. I told her that I loved her as my sister, but that I could no longer enable her destructive behavior. I explained that until she got professional help for her financial and personal problems, and until she made a genuine effort to pay back the money she owed to our parents and to the clients she defrauded, I would not have any contact with her. I sent copies of both letters to my parents and to Jessica on the same day. Then I waited. The response was immediate and explosive. Jessica called me screaming, accusing me of ruining her life and destroying our family. She said I was heartless, that I'd changed since I'd gotten successful, that I'd forgotten where I came from. She threatened to tell everyone what a terrible brother I was, to ruin my business reputation, to make sure I regretted treating family this way. My parents were more subtle but equally furious. They accused me of being cruel and vindictive. They said they were disappointed in the man I'd become. They told me that family was supposed to stick together through thick and thin, and that my refusal to help was going to destroy relationships that could never be repaired. But here's what they didn't expect. I was prepared for all of it. When Jessica started calling my clients and telling them lies about my business practices, I was ready. I'd already spoken to each of them. They knew what to expect, and several of them actually thanked me for my honesty and professionalism in handling such a difficult family situation. When she posted dramatic messages on social media about being abandoned by her family, I was ready for that too. I'd saved screenshots of every lie she'd told, every story that had changed, every contradiction in her various versions of events. I didn't engage with her posts, but when mutual friends reached out to ask what was happening, I had documentation to show them the truth. When my parents tried to guilt-trip me by telling extended family members that I'd refused to help my sister in a life-threatening situation, I was ready. I'd already reached out to my aunts, uncles, and cousins to explain the real situation. I'd shown them the private investigator's report and the evidence of Jessica's lies. Most of them admitted they'd suspected something like this for years but hadn't wanted to get involved. The hardest part was watching my parents struggle with the financial consequences of their choices. Within 2 months, they'd lost their house to foreclosure. They had to close their auto repair shop and declare bankruptcy. They moved into a small apartment and both took jobs working for other people for the first time in 20 years. It was painful to watch, but I knew that helping them would only enable Jessica to continue her destructive behavior. As long as there was someone to bail them out, she would never face the real consequences of her actions. Jessica herself hit rock bottom within 6 months. Without family money to fall back on, she was evicted from her apartment and had to move in with a friend. Her car was repossessed. She had to take a job at a fast food restaurant to pay for basic necessities. For the first time in her adult life, she had to face the reality of supporting herself without someone else's credit or savings to rely on. I won't lie and say it was easy to watch. These were people I loved. people who had raised me and shaped who I was, but I also knew that my love for them didn't require me to sacrifice my own financial security and peace of mind to enable their poor choices. The turning point came 8 months after I'd cut off contact. Jessica called me from a number I didn't recognize, and when I answered, she was crying. But it wasn't the manipulative crying I'd heard so many times before. This was different. "David, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without hanging up on me." "I'm listening. You were right. About everything. I did make up the story about Tony. I did lie about the threats. I was desperate and scared, and I thought if I could just get enough money to fix everything, I could pay everyone back and start over clean. I waited. I've been seeing a counselor, and she's helped me understand how screwed up my thinking was. I was so used to other people fixing my problems that I couldn't even see how much damage I was doing to everyone around me. What changed? Having to actually face consequences for the first time in my life. When you cut me off and Mom and Dad couldn't help anymore, I had to figure out how to survive on my own. It was terrifying, but it was also the first time I'd ever felt like I was actually in control of my own life. She paused, and I could hear her taking a shaky breath. "I'm not calling to ask for money or help. I'm calling to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry for lying to you, for trying to manipulate you, for taking advantage of your love for me. I'm sorry for all the years I treated you like a backup plan instead of appreciating what an amazing brother you are." I felt tears in my eyes. "Thank you for saying that. I have a plan to pay back everyone I owe money to. It's going to take me years, but I'm going to do it. I have a real job now, and I'm learning how to live within my means. I'm even taking a financial literacy class. I'm proud of you for making those changes. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I know I have to earn your trust back, but I wanted you to know that cutting me off was the best thing anyone has ever done for me, even though it didn't feel like it at the time." We talked for another hour. It was the first real conversation I'd had with my sister in years, maybe ever. She told me about her job, her counseling sessions, her plans for the future. I told her about my business, about Rachel, about the life I was building. It felt like talking to a completely different person. My parents took longer to come around. They'd lost everything because of their choices. And it was harder for them to accept responsibility for enabling Jessica's behavior for so many years. But eventually, my father called me. "Son, I owe you an apology. Your mother and I, we thought we were helping Jessica by always bailing her out. We thought we were being good parents. You were trying to be good parents. You just got caught up in a pattern that wasn't helping anyone. We should have listened to you years ago when you told us we were enabling her. We should have made her face consequences for her actions. It's never too late to change the pattern. We're learning that. It's been hard, but we're starting to see that Jessica is stronger than we gave her credit for. She didn't need us to solve all her problems. She needed us to believe she could solve them herself." Today, 2 years later, my relationship with my family is completely different. It's built on honesty instead of manipulation, on boundaries instead of codependency, on respect instead of obligation. Jessica has paid back about 30% of what she owed to various people. She has a steady job as an office manager, her own small apartment, and a used car that she bought with cash. She's still in counseling, and she's learned to manage her finances responsibly. We have dinner once a month, and she always insists on paying her own check. My parents rebuilt their lives more slowly. They found jobs they enjoy, even if they don't pay as much as they used to make. They rent a small house and live within their means. They've learned to have a relationship with Jessica that doesn't involve constantly rescuing her from her own decisions. We talk regularly, and for the first time in years, our conversations aren't about crises or money or who needs help with what. I proposed to Rachel 6 months ago, and we're planning a wedding next fall. My business has grown to 12 employees and over 400 clients. I was able to buy the bigger office space I'd been saving for, and I'm looking at opening a second location in Colorado Springs. None of this would have been possible if I'd given in to my family's manipulation 2 years ago. If I'd paid Jessica's fake debt, I would have taught her that lies and manipulation work. I would have enabled my parents to continue their destructive pattern of enabling. I would have sacrificed my own financial security and business goals to fix problems that weren't mine to fix. Setting boundaries with family is one of the hardest things you can do. When people accuse you of being selfish or heartless, when they tell you that family should come first, when they make you question whether you're doing the right thing, it's tempting to give in just to make the conflict stop. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their actions. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the opportunity to prove they're stronger than everyone thinks they are. Jessica is a completely different person today than she was 2 years ago. She's confident, responsible, and genuinely happy in a way I'd never seen before. My parents have a healthier relationship with both of their children than they've had in decades. And I have the peace of mind that comes from knowing my love for my family doesn't require me to sacrifice my own well-being. If you're reading this and you recognize your own family in this story, I want you to know that you have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to say no. You have the right to demand honesty and respect in your relationships, even with family members. It's not selfish to refuse to enable destructive behavior. It's not cruel to insist on boundaries. It's not heartless to protect your own financial security and emotional well-being. The people who truly love you will respect your boundaries, even if they don't like them at first. The people who only value you for what you can provide them will show their true colors when you stop providing it. Choose yourself. Set boundaries. Demand better from the people in your life. Sometimes the family that loves you is the family you choose, not the family you're born into. But sometimes, if you're very lucky, setting boundaries with the family you're born into helps them become the family you choose. The night I sent those letters to my parents and Jessica, I sat in my office looking out at the Denver skyline, and I felt something I'd never felt before: complete control over my own life and my own choices. Every dollar in my bank account was mine. Every decision about my future was mine. Every relationship in my life was based on mutual respect and honesty. It was the most liberating feeling in the world.